there's a mindset out there. There are people out there who are saying, oh, this whole copper hype, it's all because of the electric cars, and don't buy into it. Well, I disagree. If you look at the projections from, and not political organizations, not red, blue, not any, but you look at the big engineering firms, you look at all the spectrum of supply and demand, and everybody is projecting huge supply deficits. And some of them break out with and without the EVs.
This is Kaiser Johnson with Liberty and Finance, and these are the Miles Franklin Weekly Specials for November 25th through December 2nd, 2024, while supplies last. First, we feature backdated 1-ounce silver Austrian Philharmonics at just $3.09 over spot per ounce. We also feature the limited edition 2024 1-ounce gold UK Lion and Eagle coin at just $99 over spot per ounce. And finally, 1/10 ounce gold Britannia are just $29.99 over melt per coin. To order our specials or any of the many other options we have available, call us at 1-888-81-LIBERTY. That's 1-888-815-4237. We're available after hours and on weekends, and we look forward to speaking with you.
Hey everyone, this is Elijah K. Johnson with Liberty and Finance. And back with us today is our good friend Lobo Tiggre, the independent speculator. Lobo, thank you so much for joining us today.
Happy to be with you.
Well, it's great to have you today. I did want to discuss gold's price movements lately. Saw a sell-off after the results came out for the election, Trump winning, and we've also seen another sell-off here in the last few days. It could be due to the Israel-Hamas war. It seems like a ceasefire here. It could be due to the Treasury Secretary pick. Your perspective on why we have been seeing prices down.
All right. Well, I'll get into that. But first, let me just say, if plus $2,600 gold is all we have to worry about, we got nothing to worry about. The better companies should be making gobs of money. I think that's a technical description that this, the projects, the better projects. I mean, an aggressive gold price assumption in a project these days is 2,000 or 2,050. I don't think I've seen a 2,100 yet. And we're so far above that, again, the better projects should be able to advance. The better miners should be making money. And by the way, if you have a gold company that isn't making money, you really need to ask yourself if that's a gold company you want to own. So I just want to put that out there for like this. It's funny thing about gold pucks. We're only happy when the gold dollar exchange rate is going up. When it's holding at a objectively terrific level, that's not enough. We want it to be going up. So let us dispense with the wailing and gnashing of teeth and pulling of hair. There's nothing wrong with the gold dollar exchange. Well, manipulated or whatever. When I say there's nothing wrong, I mean for the actual business of mining gold, we're at a fine place. And to be going into that, what most, whether red or blue, but most economists think is a highly inflationary agenda going forward, starting from the level we're at now, I think is very bullish for gold. As for why, it does seem clear that there was a knee-jerk response to headline news, like the stuff you're talking about. To the degree that that's true, I think I usually say silly to try not to be ad hominem, but I'm just going to say it's stupid. It's just stupid. And even if Israel and Hezbollah sign a ceasefire or go into a ceasefire deal is not a peace treaty. Doesn't mean the war's over. And Hezbollah is just one of Iran's tentacles. This does nothing to do with the real source of the tension, which is Iran, or the actual situation on the ground in Gaza. So it's hard to believe that any serious adult would wake up and look at this headline and say, oh, the world feels safe today. I don't need any safe haven assets. I mean, it's just ridiculous. And the thing with Bissett is even more ridiculous. Sure, we've got a red sweep, so he's likely to be approved. So it's not just that he's only a nominee. It's the idea that anybody can rein Trump in. Now, and I don't mean to rain on the parade for Trump fans, but, he does what he does. That's one reason why people like him, right? He's not a creature of the swamp. He's He might be obnoxious or whatever, but he speaks his mind and he does what he wants. And so the idea that a Wall Street insider that the markets like got nominated as Treasury Secretary means that everything will be fine. It's just ludicrous on the face of it. We saw very clearly in the last administration that Trump will quickly replace anybody who doesn't do exactly what he says. So it doesn't matter what the person nominated thinks. It all comes down to Trump. The buck stops with him. He's the commander in chief in multiple scales. So I just think that to the degree that the latest news that we've seen is knocking back the gold dollar exchange rate. And remember, I don't like to call it the gold price because it's not pork bellies or even copper. Gold is money. So all of this stuff is noise. And if the noise is knocking back the gold dollar exchange rate, that is absolutely a buying opportunity. And in fact, my most recent purchases have been a gold and a silver stock, and I have bought physical bullion since you and I last spoke as well. So I'm putting my money where my keyboard is, or I guess we're speaking, so where my mouth is.
When it comes to Trump's, administration, I know you've been kind of skeptical. There's a lot of hope out there there's a lot of hope, for example, with respect to like Elon Musk, Vivek Ramaswamy reining in the government and with their new, DOGE organization. But your perspective on that, do you see a lot of change coming fiscally with the Trump administration?
As Thomas Jefferson wrote in the preamble to the Declaration of Independence, experience hath shewn that, when it comes to tyrants and the deep state, if you will, you just have to expect the worst. So, it's not like nobody has ever gone to Washington with a budget cutting agenda. It's not like we haven't tried to pass a balanced budget amendment or balanced budget laws that have been passed and ignored, or debt ceiling laws that get ignored so routinely, it's embarrassing that we even have them. So I think it's, I'm trying to be nice here. It is naive to think that this time is different. And that's not to criticize Mr. Musk or Ramaswamy. I think it's great. In fact, when Trump tapped Elon to help cut government spending, it was the first time since I've been in Puerto Rico for all these years that I felt regret that I could not vote. Like everything, all the other issues aside, just the idea that Elon would try to pull a Twitter on the United States federal government was enough to get me on an airplane and try to vote for that. So I love the idea. I'm just saying, as a person who's more than 7 years old and has seen a few political cycles, it's just hopelessly naive to think that much will get done. But even if a little bit gets done, in Washington, they refer to budget cuts. And when they speak of budget cuts, they mean a decrease in the increase. If the bureaucracy says, we completely failed in our mission, so double our budget, and they get a 50% increase in the budget, that's a budget cut in Washington because they didn't get the 100% increase they asked for. So if Elon could just tamp down those increases to maybe even like no increase, like didn't actually cut the budget, but held it steady. If that happens while the population grows, the economy grows, that is actually a net cut. That would be amazing. And of course, there's also whether he actually cuts any spending or not. There's cutting regulations, cutting regulators. Arguably, reducing red tape will be much more important. But it's sort of like the movie Brazil. I don't know if you're old enough to remember that one. There was a Monty Python graduate made a movie called Brazil, where there's a freedom-fighting plumber of sorts who takes on the red tape of the state. And if memory serves, he's literally like engulfed by the tape and disappears into nothing. I hope that doesn't happen to Elon. History says that's what always happens to reformers. We'll see what happens. The takeaway for investors, though, is I wouldn't bet money on it. I would cheer Elon all the way. But am I going to put money on, serious money on the possibility of him slaying this hydra that nobody else has ever been able to even lop one head off of? No. Show me, don't tell me.
Now, when it comes to how this then impacts things financially, it seems like, if we look back at past administrations, it's almost as if, every administration goes into debt more and more. And, Trump was no exception to that.
Yeah. And sorry, people need to remember, there's a lot of people that apologize for Trump saying that it was the pandemic, right? COVID made him do it. But that's not true. The Trump era spending went up before COVID. That came in at the very end of his administration. And remember, he was beaten up on Powell to take interest rates negative. He wanted easy money. He wanted to stimulate. He wanted to be loved by everybody who would get all the free money from Washington. So Trump 2.0, some things are clearly different already, but I very much doubt that will be different.
And then how that impacts the monetary metals, gold especially, it seems like nothing much will change from how your outlook based on what we're seeing fiscally.
I mean, there's things we don't know, right? We don't know who's going to get confirmed. We don't know what's actually going to get done. There are many things we don't know. But of all the different pathways we see forward, where's the deflationary one? I just don't see it. If let's say that the things that you and I have been speaking about all years, that finally we get this undeniable recession, and there are certainly cracks in the labor market, they get dismissed as hurricane-induced, but we got basically no jobs growth last month. We've got just today, as you and I speak, we have new home sales just fell off a cliff. Lowest number since 2010. Right? What was happening in 2010? We're still dealing with the GFC, right, after 2008. For anybody who's not politically biased, and granted, there are some signs of growth. Hey, money supply is going up like crazy. But there are ample signs of trouble. If that gets bad to where, we have that beep moment where the brown stuff is hitting the fan, you could say, that would be deflationary. Your David Rosenbergs of the world would say, for all these reasons, all these problems, we're going to have a recession and it's going to be deflationary. But, there's the Fed put, and then there's the stimmy checks. It's not just the Fed. You've got fiscal and monetary policy. So I have long said that I expect the trouble to become undeniable. That may or may not work out for me this year. But I've always said, and then the money helicopters would fly. So to the point of your question, where is the scenario where we have deflation, that we have, serious headwinds for all the metals, including the monetary ones? And I don't see it, because if there's any sign of trouble, I think they unleash the second wave, the third wave, the fourth wave of the money helicopters. The instant response is, recession is no fault of people's own. We can't let them suffer, so we're going to send them stimmy checks. And not little, $80, George Bush stimmy checks, multi-$1,000 Biden era checks. Trump won't want to let Biden give away more money than he does. So I think bad news would be seen as good news by the markets, but bad news would also unleash this monetary largesse, which I think would be very, very inflationary. Obviously, very good for gold, and probably silver would tag along as well. But ultimately, despite the recessionary parts, it would be good for, copper and even nickel and iron, oil, everything.
I did want to get into that. Your highest conviction trade really played out well the last 2 years. Uranium for 2023, gold for 2024. Highest conviction trade this time around is copper. Can you expand on what you're looking for there, and also timing for those wanting to get into the space? What is your thoughts? Should people be waiting or getting in right now?
Well, the answer to the second one is I'm still waiting. And the reason for that is for the reasons we were just discussing. I do still think that there's economic pain. And when I say that 2025 is going to be a year of inflation and the Trump administration will be highly inflationary, that's a next year and farther ahead, so a midterm outlook. In the meanwhile, there's the pain that we were just discussing, the new statistics showing economic weakness. It'll be really critical what the next jobs number comes out, because everybody has written off what was frankly a disastrous number last month. It's just the hurricanes or the Boeing strike. Well, both of those are gone. So if that number doesn't come screaming back, then that should really be a wake-up call. And one would think that whether left brain, right brain doesn't matter. Anybody that's serious about making money should see that and respond to that. And so if I'm right, then that would be bad news at that point. And so I'm talking very near term, as in the month ahead or two. That would be bearish for copper and everything industrial, oil too. The one exception would be uranium because it marches to the beat of a different drummer. But everything else, it would be negative in the near term. And I see that as a buying opportunity. So I'm holding off on that. And if I'm wrong, I'll miss the bottom. But I'll still have plenty of opportunity to make money all the way throughout the Trump years and probably beyond. So I feel no FOMO. The downside for me is not that I lose money here. It's just that I miss, the best buying opportunity. But to the first part of your question, why? And I think most of your audience has probably heard about the structural supply problems the copper market faces. It's getting increasingly difficult to find, let alone permit, these giant, copper. The copper mines that matter, there are some small high-grade ones here and there, but they don't really move the market. The ones that matter are giant porphyry things that they're mega pits. And those are getting very, very difficult to permit anywhere in the world, even in mining jurisdictions that have been pro-mining. Because there's such a large footprint. They're just magnets for opposition. And there haven't been that many big discoveries recently. There are a few spectacular ones, Friedland in the DRC and so on. But they're few and far between. So I think most of your audience probably knows this. I don't need to beat that to death, but I do want to address something else. Most of my audience, I think they tend to be skeptical of the forced electrification narrative, and some of them hate electric cars, and just because they're contrarians and don't like having an idea rammed down their throat. I get that, but that doesn't mean the EVs are going away. Just because the adoption has cooled off, it doesn't mean that nobody wants these. And it also doesn't mean that the powers that be will back off. We'll see. Every time there's been trouble here, they've doubled down, except for Gavin Newsom recently with Tesla. They doubled down with incentives and, tax breaks and all kinds of stuff. So I don't think the EVs are going away. But even if they do, let's say in your fondest dreams, Tesla goes bankrupt. Well, maybe not, because now Musk is helping with DOGE, right? But not the coin, the department. But anyway, let's say the EVs all go away. That still is not bearish for copper. There is a mindset out there. There are people out there who are saying, oh, this whole copper hype, it's all because of the electric cars, and don't buy into it. Well, I disagree. If you look at the projections from, and not political organizations, not red, blue, not any, but you look at the big engineering firms, you look at all the spectrum of supply and demand, and everybody is projecting huge supply deficits. And some of them break out with and without the EVs. Our copper chart has with and without. But even, I don't remember, as Wood Mackenzie, or I don't remember which firm, but I've seen some of the big engineering firms doing this. And you look at the copper deficits going forward, and they're huge. And then on top of that, you get a nice big slice on top if the electrification dream, if the EVs add even more. So I think that's a key takeaway. I mean, the reason why copper now, not before, is not that the structural supply deficit is new. It's that I was expecting this hard landing. And now either that's going to happen like immediately, or it's not going to happen, and it's into the next reflationary boom. So either way, I want to get ready. I want to get my shopping list ready to buy copper stocks going into 2025.
Now, when it comes to geopolitical tensions, do you see any impact there? I know, as we mentioned at the top of this interview, the ceasefire deal with Israel, Hezbollah isn't really an end to the war. And then it seems like things are getting way worse for Russia and Ukraine.
Yeah, Trump fans may get mad at me for saying this. And again, I'm anti-war. If Trump can end the war, I can't say that's a bad thing. Would it make me sad to see, Ukraine knuckle under and give up so much territory to Russia? Perhaps, but that doesn't obligate the U.S. taxpayer, and certainly not U.S. service persons, to go and die for somebody else's war. So I'm not a warmonger, but I just think it's not realistic to think that anybody can end this conflict in 24 hours. That was a campaign promise. That was hubris, I think. Now, I can see the reason for it. I can see Trump thinking, oh, well, I'll just tell Zelensky I'm not giving him another dime, so he better go and talk to the Russians, and I can fix it in 24 hours. I mean, story-wise, as an exaggeration, let's say, I can see where that might fly. But I don't know that that would happen at all. The Europeans are, they're in a very different mindset from Americans. For us as Americans, this conflict is Ukraine. It's on the other side of the world. For Europe, it's on their doorstep. And, it's difficult to see Europe pulling together and really acting in a strong, cohesive way, given the cluster beep we've seen over the last few years. But war is the sort of thing that can do that. And if the U.S. steps back, I could see Europe saying, holy cow, we really need to come together and take care of this. And for the Ukrainians to basically surrender after all they've suffered, I think many Ukrainians, that's really unacceptable. And I don't know if, they're going to fight to the last man. That's a really tall order. But I could absolutely see them fighting on. If the Europeans said, you know what, we can't support you as much as the U.S., but we'll step up, we'll help you, we'll support you. I could see the Ukrainians fighting on. So what I'm taking on here is the 24-hour idea. And maybe with European help, they managed to hold on a little bit longer, negotiate a better thing. They have that incursion into Russia. Maybe they can exchange that land in Russia for some of the land the Russians took and have a more acceptable settlement. I don't know how that turns out. The takeaways, though, are, and again, I don't mean to beat up on Trump here for Trump fans, but I'm just saying, as an adult with a gray beard, it's don't believe campaign promises. Don't take them at face value. These are difficult, complicated questions, and you should expect this to take longer than advertised, if it even goes the way Trump wants it all.
Final thoughts for our viewers then as we go into the end of the year. Could you remind our viewers kind of what you're looking at and how you're positioning yourself?
Right. Well, so normally this would be a time to think about tax loss selling, but actually with silver, still holding over 30 and gold holding at or near nominal all-time highs, I don't have a lot of tax losses to worry about. And for the better companies, the other side of tax loss season is to look for buying opportunities, right? If I'm bullish, but the market is down, the stock is down, maybe, mid-December, I can get a really great buying opportunity. It's a time to go playing in the market with stink bids. But this year, not so much. If you got a gold and silver stock that is at 52-week lows, when silver's over 30 and gold is over 2,600, maybe that's not a stock you want to buy more of this tax loss season. So this time is a bit different. And that's a good thing. I'm glad to have gains to be protecting rather than losses to be harvesting. So the year-end point would simply be, if there's more scare, if I don't know, some apparent good news out of the U.S. knocks gold down to 2,500 or even below, I think that would be a panic moment for a lot of gold's Johnny-come-lately friends. And that could create buying opportunities. If we saw something like that, I would absolutely be, have a garage sale, sell some blood, whatever necessary to back up the truck and buy some great stocks there. On the call for 2025, I'm not sure that I'll do any shopping before the end of this year. If we see signs of immediate healing in the labor market, if the U.S. economy shows much stronger, not just the labor report, because it just seems like they're always revising those anyway. But if the weekly claims and the ADP private payrolls, as well as the BLS stat, if the preponderance of data, right, shows a really strengthening U.S. laborer consumer, then I might go ahead and jump in and start buying copper stocks during this year's tax loss season. There could be tax loss opportunities for buying in the copper space. Everything else, I'd probably wait. Oil, I'm still a little bit more nervous on. Oil is like copper. People like to say maybe copper is the new oil, right? But copper is facing a structural supply shortage, whereas oil, it's facing voluntary supply cuts because of a potential glut. So it's quite different. Copper is definitely my number one pick. And depending on how we get the next economic data points, We can do an end of the year conversation, Elijah, and see how it goes. I might start buying copper during this tax law season. Otherwise, it'll probably be early 2025. And I expect copper to do very well over the course of next year.
Well, Lobo Tiggre, really appreciate your time today. IndependentSpeculator.com is the website. Any last thoughts before we let you go?
No, just happy Thanksgiving to all who celebrate it, and happy holidays again to everybody. I think just the takeaway is, don't panic. For hard money advocates, for people who value liberty and finance, the latest shenanigans, the noise is distracting, but you were right. Money supply being blown out did matter. That inflation did happen, and gold did respond. The timing is squishy, but it's happening. Like, your playbook is not wrong. So don't let the people around the Thanksgiving table make fun of you because they bought Bitcoin and you bought gold.
Fantastic. And if people, again, want to keep track of all of this with you, IndependentSpeculator.com is the place to go. Link in the description here. Lobo, thank you so much for your time. Happy Thanksgiving and God bless.
Thank you, Elijah.
This is Kaiser Johnson with Liberty and Finance, and these are the Miles Franklin Weekly Specials for November 25th through December 2nd, 2024, while supplies last. First, we feature backdated 1-ounce silver Austrian Philharmonics at just $3.09 over spot per ounce. We also feature the limited edition 2024 1-ounce gold UK Lion and Eagle coin at just $99 over spot per ounce. And finally, 1/10 ounce gold Britannia are just $29.99 over melt per coin. To order our specials or any of the many other options we have available, call us at 1-888-81-LIBERTY. That's 1-888-815-4237. We're available after hours and on weekends, and we look forward to speaking with you.